Now, thousands of farmers are expected in central London tomorrow to protest against the government's proposed changes to inheritance tax. Rachel Reeves announced in her budget last month that farmers will soon have to pay a 20% tax rate on any business worth more than £1 million. The government insists small family farms will not be affected, with the Prime Minister defending the plans once again at the G20 in Brazil.
Look, I do understand that it's causing concern, but if you take a typical case of a couple wanting to pass a family farm down to one of their children, which would be a very typical example, with all of the thresholds in place, that's £3 million before any inheritance tax is paid. And that's why I'm confident that the vast majority of farms and farmers will not be affected at all by that aspect of the budget. They will be affected by the £5 billion that we're putting into farming, and I'm very happy to work with farmers on that.
Well, farmers argue the government doesn't know its own figures, and data from DEFRA suggests 2/3 of farm businesses are worth more than the £1 million threshold. Ahead of tomorrow's protest, I've spoken to Jonathan Charlesworth. His father, Philip, took his own life 3 weeks ago. And Jonathan believes his despair over the family's financial future was a key reason.
Well, my dad, Philip, obviously, when he passed away in tragic circumstances just over 2 weeks ago now, at 78. I don't think he missed much of a day's work in his life up until then. You know, he was born into farming. He was farming through and through. It was like brought up as a child with my granddad on the farm, and then when he took over in the 80s, he built it up, built a big pig unit on the farm, added more land to the farm. The last sort of 10, 15 years I've been running the farm, but he's still had a hand in it. Like I say, he's pretty much worked every day of his life until my mum became ill with dementia. So the last 5 years or so he's been caring primarily for my mum, but he's still been able to sneak out whenever he can and do little bits and pieces. And a very sad loss to both us, but the general community as well.
What's the realities of running a farm? Because you say you never missed a day's work, because there's plenty of work to do.
Oh, there is. I mean, we work 7 days a week. My dad worked 7 days a week, very few holidays. I mean, I don't remember going on holiday a lot as a kid. If I did, it tend to go with my grandparents. But 7 days a week, it still is. I think, if I look at myself now, I think the last time I had a week's holiday was probably about 13 years ago.
Because, Jonathan, the myth is all farmers are rich, but in reality, profits these days are small. Many farmers find themselves in debt. And on paper, your dad was asset-rich.
Yeah,
we're
asset-rich and cash poor.
But day-to-day, he earned less than the minimum wage.
I mean, the farm last year made 15,000. You know, and we're working 50, 60 hours a week, probably on average, 7 days a week, with the odd day off here and there. But even if a day off, we work before we go and we work when we get back.
People will listen to this and go, I get this. Yeah. You know, I run a farm. The National Farmers Union say there is increasing financial pressure on farmers because of high costs, record inflation, low farm returns and persistent bad weather. Then came word to the farming community, including your dad, Philip, that there was going to be a change to inheritance tax in the new government's budget. What kind of effect did that have on your dad?
Well, the last sort of 6 weeks, couple of months before the budget came out, it was the only topic of conversation. You know, first week we spoke about on a morning, probably the last thing we spoke about on an evening. Before we sort of parted ways for the evening, it was just budget, how are we going to manage it, what's going to come in, how big is this, you know, what's the tax burden going to be? Nobody knew. When my dad went, I obviously left a note, and the last thing he'd done under the note was a scribblings of how we could possibly pay this tax bill. Little notes, you know, solicitor need to ask this, need to ask that, question mark, question mark, question mark. And must have been what was going through his head that pushed him over the edge. If we'd been lumped with a couple 100,000 or more inheritance tax, there's just no way we could have paid it. We couldn't have borrowed that sort of money. There was just absolutely no way without going out and going out and working somewhere else to pay it. I don't know. There's just absolutely no way we could have paid it.
And in your dad's mind, he's working 60-hour weeks for not very much money because he knows that this farm is his legacy. He's handing it down to you. This is a family business. He's not in it to earn lots of money. He's in it for the love of farming and the hope that it will go to you.
I don't think any of us are in it to make a fortune. It'd be nice if we did, but we're there to farm. We want to farm well. We want to look after our animals well, produce a product. We want to improve the product we produce, whether that be livestock or crops. I think every farmer wants to leave it slightly better than the last generation.
How do you feel about the fact that you're pretty certain you knew what the key reason for your dad choosing to take his own life, because he was under enormous pressure and he wanted to do right by you in terms of, you know, if that inheritance tax didn't come in, he saw it coming in the future and he hoped that you would be a beneficiary rather than being punished money-wise. How do you feel? We're, you know, not 3 weeks on from his death, but I just want to get a sense of how you're feeling.
Well, angry, really. I mean, there was so much hype around it. I think if there'd been some information put out there so we actually knew what might be coming, so we knew what we'd be working around, everybody was fairly certain.
Everybody feeling pretty stressed?
Yeah, and I mean, it was stressed anyway from caring from my mum, which was another way, really, because with dementia, if she'd gone into a home, that could have eaten away at the farm, because, you know, that's 50,000 a year or whatever in care costs. You know, so we've kept her at home as long as we possibly could, not just because, obviously, we want her at home, but, you know, it's always at the back of your mind if she goes into care, and, you know, the government can take that out of the assets as well, so that's... And then double whammy, it's inheritance tax comes in, and I don't know, it just seems to kill ambition, I think. Yeah. You know, what's the point in having an ambition if the government's just going to take it away? What's
the future of farming then? Because who is going to go into farming with it in this state, and how can families survive? Because British farming survives because those farms are passed down through generations. As you said, it's a love for farming.
It isn't, but also the knowledge. I mean, I've been learning since I was 2, 3 years old, probably, certainly from 5 years old. I've been out there hands-on, and I've been to agricultural college and I've learnt a lot there, but a lot of what I learnt came from my dad and my granddad. And that, you know, you're brought up doing it, you're learning on the job, and there's more to it than just looking after animals. You know, you've got to be an electrician, an accountant, a plumber, a welder. You know, when something goes wrong, you need to be able to mend it, and you can neither afford to bring a tradesman in or have the time to wait for them to come a lot of the time. So, and a lot of that you pick up as a youngster that being brought up by your parents.
Well, the government don't comment on individual circumstances, but they have sent their condolences to your family. And I wonder what, with the farmers coming to London to talk to their MPs and to show the government just how difficult this is making life for them, I wonder what you could say to the Prime Minister if you could sit down with him and explain to him what help you actually need if it is not this.
For one, I'm not sure he'd listen.
Is that how you feel, that they're not listening to you?
I don't think they understand the agricultural industry one little bit. You know, I think...
The Chancellor's husband works in that department.
He works in that department. He doesn't work in farming. I don't think... I think the DEFRA department is probably nearly as removed from farming as the government is, or certainly part... Don't get me wrong, there's some very good people in DEFRA, so I'm not going to tar them all with the same brush, but...
But they don't get it and they're not listening. So what would you say to him if he is listening?
I think he should come and spend a week working on a farm. You know, see what goes off on a family farm. Be up at, you know, 4 or 5 in the morning, come back for milking at 7 o'clock at night, and do that for 7 or 8 days a week, and then see what, you know, and then does he still then think we're not classed as the working people that he's standing up for?
Well, we did ask the government to respond to Jonathan's family's situation. They told us that their thoughts and condolences are with Philip's family following his tragic death. And a reminder, if you have been affected by the issues raised in this story, help is available from the Samaritans 24 hours a day. You can call 116 123 or email joe@samaritans.org.